Fair warning, spoilers ahead for the pilot episode of Star Wars The Mandalorian.
How you get so big that you hold of this kind?
Hello and welcome in. I am not kidding. This is going to be a spoiler-filled look at the episode, and I'm going to be talking about the episode all in a go, so if you're looking for an episode recap, this is probably not going to be the best video for you either, but I'm certainly happy to have you here. I know not all of our viewers are getting the show today, and I am sorry for that, but be rest assured that I'm going to keep the spoilers hidden in this video. If you have not seen it yet, we also have a spoiler-free review, so be sure to check that out. But this is your final warning, you need to leave. So that show was so good. Okay, so the intro right at the beginning was really neat. I hope that becomes a thing that they do across Star Wars media that they make for the site. I like how we meet him on this cold and wintry world. Cold is a feeling I would ascribe to most of the show, or most of the episode, even on the planet with the Blurgs and the Ugnulti, that could be Tatooine. Even there it felt cold, it felt grizzled. You know, we are in this galaxy that is post-Empire, and we are seeing the crumbling that comes from that. We're seeing how their currency is falling apart. Even Herzog's character, the old man who hires the Mandalorian to go find the target, he has an Imperial emblem, he's surrounded by stormtroopers, like we get this sense that he is this ex-Imperial, but we don't know what that means, and to what degree he's an ex-Imperial. For those of you who have been following post-Return of the Jedi Star Wars material, which is when this show takes place, I don't know how his troopers fall into Operation Cinder. They certainly have beat-up armor, like the stormtroopers who would have been on Jakku. If you have read the Aftermath books, if you haven't read any of that, you don't know what I'm talking about. That's completely fine. It has little to do with the show right now, but it is an interesting thing to speculate about. I also like that right from the get-go, we feel like we're really in the nitty-gritty of the Star Wars universe. There's so many aliens, some of which are immediately recognizable. Some of them look like new species, at least to me. We hear Huttese. I know it's Huttese because of specific words. I can't really speak Huttese, but I know a couple of key words. And just the Mandalorian's whole introduction. He just barges in, distracts these guys, and knows that he's going to cause so much attention that they're going to stop what they're doing so that he can take them out so he can take the bounty for himself. And we see an immediate contrast, too, that they are, like, playing with their bounty, and threatening to, like, mutilate him, where the Mando is literally just like, you can come with me dead or alive. And takes him back to his ship. I also really liked right there at the beginning that we got this amazing creature experience. That I always say I love Star Wars when it's weird, and I love seeing weird creatures. So for some reason on this planet, you have to park way out on the ice and have a speeder take you to and from. But if you do, there's like a weird ice walrus worm that can like jump up and eat you and attack your ship. I liked that whole sequence because there's so many things going on right at the beginning that feel very, very much referencing the Star Wars Holiday Special. The Mando's gun is exactly like the one in the Holiday Special. He's fighting like weird sea creatures in that, or he's taming one and riding one, and we see him riding the Blurg later. His armor type looks very prototypey, like the more prototypey version that we saw in the animated show. And the bounty at the beginning even mentions Life Day. So there's very intentional connections to that, which is, of course, where Boba Fett originally came from. His first appearance was in the animated cartoon, or the cartoon in the Star Wars Holiday Special. He makes his way in, he finds his guild boss. Here we start to see more and more about how bounty hunter guilds work, at least in the new canon. You know, we've seen the fob, we see that they have the pucks, the things that have everybody's pictures in it. You go to the guild master, he gives you a job, there's other people in this guild, there's all of these other machinations going on, and we learn that times and currency are tough. And then we go to the Imperial guy, and there's so many things going on here. So upon rewatching it, I realized that IG-11, the droid that comes in later, when they get to the target, says that, well, it's too bad that we'll never know how long it'll live, because my commission says that he needs to be killed. But when we see the Mando get the job, he is supposed to bring in the baby alive, but dead is okay. That's where the complicated profession line comes in. So immediately I have to wonder if either the conditions changed or if IG-11 and the Mando had different bosses. Were they operating under the same target but different bounties? And how many people are at play here? I'm also really curious about the the scientist guy. He looked like he was dressed in science stuff, but I don't really know who he is. But the guy who was with the Imperial guy who was all like, no, you can't kill him. Like, what's his role? What's he up to? How is he related to this kid? As for the character of the Mandalorian himself, I am pumped. I loved what we got to see with him. I love that he's this big BA fighter. He can handle himself on his own, but he's not necessarily gratuitous in anything he does. You know, he fights the walrus worm, but all he wants to do is get away. He's not mad at the walrus worm for attacking his ship, and he goes down and kills it and then, like, wears its hide or something ridiculous. He seems to be really good at predicting people. Like, that seems to be his really, really good skill. You know, he knows that if he walks into the bar, the guys are going to stop messing with the bounty, they're going to mess with him. He knows that if he lets his bounty go down into the hold, he's going to snoop around and find the carbon freezing guys. Rather than, like, fight him and drag him into the carbon freezing chamber, which he easily could have done, he, like, spooks him in there. Even when he interacts with IG-11, how he knows, like, how to strategize with the guys shooting, everybody shooting at him. He seems to be a guy who's really good at reading people and reading situations, and I'm really excited to see how that skill plays out throughout the season. IG-11 was a lot of fun. I loved the gag of the I will self-destruct now, and the Mando constantly yelling, don't self-destruct, don't self-destruct. I don't know, I thought the way they played off of each other was really good. The Ugnulti I really liked. I liked his I've spoken line. So they just did a really good job of bringing in all of these side characters and explaining them really quickly, and I'm really excited to see who we see again. I'm excited to see if we see IG-11 again, or if he's kind of down for the count. The other cool thing that we really got to see was the Mandalorian den. So the Mando goes home, basically, and we see all these folks in Mandalorian armor, we see kids running around with helmets, we see the person who makes the armor, and they have this really in-depth conversation where we learn that the metal that the Mando would be paid in is the metal that they use to make Mandalorian armor, and that has been largely taken from the Mandalorians by the Empire. During that conversation, too, she's making him a pauldron, and says, hey, this is really generous of you because all of the runoff will help sponsor foundlings. And he says he's a foundling. So we learn a couple things here. One, the Mando, Pedro Pascal, his character was not born a Mandalorian. He is somebody who's been adopted into Mandalorian culture. And in Legends canon, that was a very normal thing. You had people who were hereditarily Mandalorian, but then they would also adopt people into their family. But because he's not in a Mandalorian family, because he's not directly from a tribe, he wouldn't have armor to inherit. But the Mandalorians have, you know, a lack of the ability to make new armor. So this whole sponsoring foundlings thing tells me that there's probably a lot of people who have become Mandalorian but can't have the armor, and that they get sponsored from a tribe. They get materials to make their own armor, probably the same way he got his helmet, because people generously donated their extra stuff. And I really liked that dynamic. And that made one line from Nick Nolte's character, the Ugnaught, really interesting, because he's trying to tame the blurrg and he can't do it. And Nolte's pep talk is, hey, your ancestors could ride the mythosaur, which is this, by the way. That was the same symbol on the armor maker's door. They rode the mythosaur, and if they can ride that, you could ride this. That had to be a really intense line for him, because his ancestors did not ride the mythosaur. He is a foundling. He is somebody who was adopted into the Mandalorians. So that call to action was less be like your family and more of a reminder of what he's not. And I kind of wonder if this is going to become his story. He is a Mandalorian, but he doesn't have the full armor. He doesn't have a family that could gift that to him. He doesn't have that lineage. He doesn't have that history. So he's the guy who is trying to prove who he is as a Mandalorian. That even though he is the title Mandalorian, that the show is named after him, maybe he himself doesn't see it that way. And I don't know that for sure, but that's just kind of my interpretation. And I'm really excited to see how that goes, see how that is going forward. And now the big thing I want to talk about, the end. If you are watching this, and I mean, I've already kind of spoiled it in talking about it, but like, this is the point of no return. So partway through the episode, when the Mando gets the information to go after the bounty, all he knows is the age. He knows 50 years old. And he goes to this encampment, so you spend the whole time going, okay, 50-year-old gangster. They bust in to the base, and there's no one there, and there's just this little pod. And you open it and it's a baby, and they're like, I thought it was 50 years old. And IG-11 says species age differently. And then we see the baby of a Yoda species. Up until now in current canon, I think the only two canon members are Yoda and Yaddle. There were more in Legends canon, but we've never seen a baby of Yoda species. And I have to admit, I sobbed. I sobbed. You've seen some of my trailer reactions if you've been a regular on the channel. The trailer reaction to the first Rise of Skywalker trailer that I saw at Celebration is the most I have ever cried watching Star Wars, and that was just me kind of welling up 3 times. Like, I've watched Star Wars and have had tears come to my eyes, but I have never cried at Star Wars. Nothing has happened where I just, like, am overcome. I saw the baby Yoda and, like, there were puddles on my face. Like, I didn't even see all of the end of the episode. I had to re-watch the end because I was crying so hard, and I don't know why. I don't know what seeing this baby Yoda did, but I think it was just because it was so out of left field. I knew something was coming. I had been told there was some kind of twist, but I didn't know what it was. And then for it to be something that was, like, so exciting to me. And for a long time, it's been my headcanon that, like, a young Yoda would age slower. You know, it's not like us where, you know, he'd be an adult by the time he's 20 and then spend 900 years after age 20 being adult. This idea that he would age slower. And so the idea that one of his species could be a baby at 50 years old, like, it was so great because it was like I watched something that fulfilled my... Anyway, now I'm just talking about me and not the show. But I'm so excited for what that means. I'm presuming he has to be Force sensitive, otherwise I don't know why anyone would care, why the Empire would care to send bounties after him, but oh my gosh, I am so excited. And he's just the cutest little thing, and I will protect that baby forever. I love the little moment where the Mando, like, reaches out and they, like they have a little, like, hold hands moment, and oh, I am so jazzed to see where this goes. I knew I was gonna like the show, because generally speaking, I like anything Star Wars. And I figured it would be fine. But Underworld stuff isn't my favorite thing. Bounty Hunter stuff isn't my favorite thing. Mandalorian stuff isn't my favorite thing. So I was like, I was gonna like this, but I wasn't really expecting the show to have something for me. And then we got Baby Yoda, and I lost my mind. But that's really what I have to say. I think I've already talked quite a while on it. I'll have more to say, obviously, as the series goes on, and, you know, we have more than just the general information, but let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're not already, follow us on all of the socials, and we will, of course, keep doing an episode-by-episode review series on the channel, and until next time, keep it real, and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun!